Hi, and welcome to PowerViews. I'm Dan McDade, your host and president of PointClear. PowerViews is dedicated to finding solutions to some of today's toughest marketing and sales challenges. My guest today is Dan Waldschmidt. In his LinkedIn profile, he describes himself as an ordinary dude with an outrageous vision. The Wall Street Journal calls him his business insights on his blog is some of the best in the world, and has been profiled in Inc. magazine, Business Week, and hundreds of articles and radio shows worldwide. From his website, I picked up 3 out of 11 facts about Dan that I thought the viewers would enjoy. First, he was at 18 the youngest department manager of a Sears in Shelby, North Carolina. And my best friend in college and I both dated a girl from Shelby, North Carolina, so that resonates with me. Dan sold cemetery plots while studying theology at the seminary. He says this period of his life helps keep things in perspective. And he trained for an ultimate fighting event, but the only thing he ended up fighting was an infection in the ER, which was a blessing, no doubt. Dan's privately owned firm specializes in executive strategy, business strategy, big deal capture, marketing, changing the conversation, and edgy ideas. Dan, welcome to PowerViews.
Welcome, Dan. I'm excited to be here with you today. I didn't know if you were talking about me with that introduction. I realized you're talking about cemetery plots. Yeah, must be me.
I'm talking about you, and we just chatted for just a couple of minutes before we went live here about the beautiful part of the country that you live in, Greenville, South Carolina. I think that's probably an area like some places out in Oregon where I used to live, which is, you really don't want people to know how wonderful it is there because you don't want it to get too crowded, probably.
After living for 30 years in D.C. and the craziness of always on the go, it's nice to. Our offices are still headquartered in D.C., but it's nice to come home to a place that's a little more friendly,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I went to school in that area too, and that was many years ago. I wanted to first ask you about your edgy strategy, the 4 behaviors that lead companies to being wildly successful. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Right. So this came about after many years of growing my own companies. I grew a company in the services industry doing plumbing, heat, air conditioning, things like this. Not glamorous tasks. I grew a company from a couple million to add a 0 on the end of that. So let's say 2 million to 20 million. All of a sudden, that's a pretty big company, and did it in about 2 years. And then I completely left that industry and went to legal services technology. People said, well, you can't grow those that fast, and we grew even faster, something like 9,000% over a year. It was crazy, millions and millions of dollars. And then after becoming CEO and selling the company, people started asking me for help. And I didn't really understand what I was doing. It was kind of a gut feel. And so that spurred me, that kind of incentivized me to go and figure it out. And what I uncovered after doing a case study on 1,000 amazing people and organizations, people that I admired, was that I came up with this idea that I was edgy. We looked at there were 4 things that really drove success. 4 things: extreme behavior, disciplined activity, a giving mindset, and number 4 was a human perspective. We spell human with a Y instead of an H, because edge is not as cool as edgy. So, yeah, and those are really when we go in and help companies now all over the world with strategies that change their roles, really it comes down to those 4 qualities. Are you being extreme enough? Are you disciplined? Are you giving more than people expect you to give? And then 4, are you human? Are you emotionally intelligent?
I was going to ask you, one of the examples that you used on the website was, I think you said Thomas Edison tried 10,000 times before he got the light bulb right. Probably many people don't know that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so what I started doing is taking these stories about, let's say, Thomas Edison and others, and putting them into our world. Take for example, Harlan Sanders, who we know as the Colonel Sanders. He remixed his recipe over 1,200 times and shopped it to over 1,000 investors before someone decided to invest in him. Now we go through a drive-through, we buy fried chicken. I don't really eat that fast food, but that's okay. I mean, I hear it's very tasty, and it's all over the world. $1 billion franchise that I think is owned now by Pepsi Cola. by a guy who tried this 1,000 times. And I ask business leaders, is what you do a little more sophisticated than fried chicken? Oh, yeah, of course. So here's a guy who tried 1,000 times before he got it right. And you want to try twice, or you want to try, oh, we tried that once. And so it didn't jive. Some of my earlier gut instincts didn't jive with what I saw historically. Guys like Henry Ford, who went bankrupt 5 times. You go bankrupt 1 time now, and you're like accursed. You must not have your wits about you. You must not have, you must not be doing the right thing. So a lot of these lessons on unconvention, basically illogical business success, were some of the things I was studying, and I noticed that across the board, whether it was Apple, whether it was Richard Branson, whether it was Olympic athletes, that the things they shared were these edgy principles. They were willing to go further and farther than anyone else in this model of extreme. They did it consistently. Think about trying something 10,000 times. I mean, seriously, 10,000 times. Once, twice, 3 times. I mean, try that. I mean, just even counting to 10,000 by ones is a little bit difficult. So you're trying this 10,000 times. How many people come to you and say, listen, take a look at the facts. I know you're well-meaning. I know you're trying hard, but maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you need to get a real job. So what we try to do with Edgy is look at why business is broken. Not just look at why cold calling is broken or why prospecting is broken, all these tactical pieces underneath sales, but look at why business is broken. And then come up with these philosophies that really have profound impact when applied practically.
I know a couple of other things you talk about metrics, which are near and dear to my heart, and talk about the attitude, the giving mindset. And I get the sense from reading your stuff that giving attitude is not just about giving to your clients, but it's about giving to your employees and giving to mankind, I guess. Do you feel like that's an important part of your philosophy?
Yeah, and what I like about what you said was, I like the word you said, philosophy. So it's intentional. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to give you a bonus if you hit your quota. No, that's tactical stuff. That's all tactical stuff. It's, admittedly somewhat self-serving because I want you to hit your quota, so I'm giving you a little bit of what I make. Mm-hmm. But the philosophy of giving is empowering. To say, I'm going to give to you, not loan to you, not trade to you. I'm going to give to you. That concept is so singularly profound that when we have gifts given to us, we're moved. It's truly memorable. Now, a lot of what we do in business, you may be listening to this and going, well, Dan, I give. If you go to my website, go to page 3, scroll down, right there, you can hit a link and download this wonderful PDF. I'm going to give that to you if you give me your name and information. That's not really a gift. Because a gift means that there's really some value. And I'm sorry, but most of PDFs are pretty shady. Now, someone on your staff sent me your copy of your book. It was signed, really nice. Thank you, by the way. They didn't ask me for anything. They just sent it to me. So that's a gift. That's a gift. It cost you something. That book you had to create. That book you had to print. That book you had to ship. And you had to take a few seconds out of your day to either sign it or have someone else pretend like they were you and sign it.
I signed it.
All right, we cleared that up. So that cost you something. And gifts, that when we truly give something, it's not only memorable for the person getting the gift, but for us, it empowers us. How many times do our conversations talk about, well, these leads are just taking advantage of us, or all my prospects are crazy? No, maybe you're crazy. Maybe you're crazy. Maybe you're selfish. Maybe you're not the type of person that deserves great clients because you're not a great person. And so this idea of giving, maybe this comes from my days in seminary, but I think it applies beyond this. I see the companies that give value, the companies that give more than what people pay for, end up wildly successful. One quick example would be Zappos, who we all know we've beaten to death, to stop this example, put them up on a really high pedestal. But I think what's memorable about it is, before, we all preach about customer service, but great customer service is in direct dispute. I mean, it's a head-on conflict with accounting. Because accounting says if you hire more people and you don't know exactly why you're hiring them, they're just there to provide extra support, then that's bad. And those are extra bodies, we're paying extra 20% and all that stuff. So that's bad. So it's a direct conflict with the idea of profitability. But here was a guy who said it doesn't matter. Our mission is outrageous service. And when you deliver that, it sets the bar so much higher for you as a company. It gives you the benefit of the doubt if you accidentally do screw up, hopefully not. And what happens is those people return, massively more than the money you're paying them. The problem is when you introduce that idea, when you go to the guy who's writing the checks and say, we're going to hire 3 people to do nothing but deliver outrageous service. To the people trialing our products, they go, wait a minute, we're providing service to people who haven't paid for anything? They haven't given us any money? We're giving them support? What's going on? We're going to go out of business. So people go all crazy about these things, and they fail to realize that there's these opportunities for giving that allow you to change the conversation. And if you can't change the conversation, then you're stuck in this twisty-turny game of trying to manipulate prospects paying you, you losing deals, you doing more, and it's just this endless cycle. You write a little bit about that in some of your book. I saw the illustrations. I think it's great. But that's the power of giving.
Let me read you a little bit from one of your blogs, or really read to the viewers. Obviously, you wrote this, but this really struck me. It was that you don't have to blink. And a couple of the examples you gave were when your biggest customer makes other plans, or if a key staff member leaves, that you're strong enough to look fear and failure and doubt and your own misgivings straight in the eye. You don't need to think about it, reconsider, or plan your options. You just need unwavering focus. What happens to you isn't your choice. Blinking is a choice. The truth is that you alone are enough to succeed. That's pretty powerful. A friend of mine, relating back to the edgy strategy, used to say, often we don't fail, we just give up. Yeah. Where does this come from? What's your background on this?
Well, I'm a student in human behavior. That's the essence. Most of what we do in consulting is based in neuroscience. So you might call us, mind hackers. That's what we do. We go in and convince people to change their thinking. Really, prospects, buyers. So that requires us to be really brutally honest about our own personalities, about our own human nature, about our own frailty. And for too long, sales has been this machismo sport of, sleeping with clients, drinking way too much whiskey, buying tickets. And we've kind of lost our way, and I know I'm going to stereotypes rather than perhaps the people watching this who are really trying to better themselves. But but because we have not really examined our own frailty, we're not able to survive when the last 3 or 4 or 5 years have happened and the economy has crashed. And we've got people who don't really know who they are, and they don't know they're strong enough. They know that if they can drink a beer with a client or sleep with the client or give tickets to the client, they think they can hold on to an account. What they're not sure is how to hold on to that account when the person they were dealing with and sleeping with and drinking with just got fired because that company's downsizing. And so there's no foundation for business. And we as leaders let that happen because we said, well, you're bringing in the revenue, so do whatever you have to do to bring in that revenue. So I guess where I try to go back to is on my blog and in conversations with clients is to say, who are we as people? In simpler times, we were all warriors. Because if you weren't a warrior, you were a dead person. And we took what we wanted in a real banal sense. If I wanted what you had, if I wanted your territory or your beautiful daughters or whatever you had that I wanted, I took it. I just took it. And there was this sense of if it's going to be done, it's got to be me. Not you, not your friends, me, who's got to do it. And we've kind of lost our way. We've become really intellectual about things. We throw around phrases like, work smarter, not harder. And we don't even know what that means. We just means, we hope it means, I hope it doesn't hurt really bad. Instead of saying, I hope it doesn't really hurt that bad, but if it does, I'm going to take it. I'm going to embrace the pain. I'm going to feel the pain. I may cry. It may hurt really bad, but I'm gonna stand back up and I'm gonna accomplish what I've set out to do. So these are the things that I write about. You know, I wrote something yesterday about maybe it's time to go back to Clueless. You know, I get to meet with, you're interviewing me here today in a T-shirt, you know, but I get to put on my suit and tie and meet with our lobbyists in downtown D.C. and help clients advocating on healthcare and a bunch of different things. And I'll tell you, sometimes you can walk away from these conversations so down in the mouth, doom and gloom, and, you know, the president's the Antichrist, and taxes, we're all going to die. And it's just, you walk away going, wow, I'm feeling really icky and sticky and nasty here. And you forget that, you know, maybe we don't need that in our lives. Maybe we just need to believe that we're going to be one of the lucky ones. I have to think when I hear the stories of like Joseph Stephen Akwabe in the 1968 Olympics, who had an amazing comeback for the marathon. When I think of guys like Thomas Edison, we talked about, you know, when I think about endless numbers of warriors, you know, people who set these extraordinary examples of what humans can do. I don't know. I think it just comes back down to that simpleness of like being naive enough to believe that you can actually do it.
I think another good example of that is Michael Jordan. Most people don't realize he was a failure as a basketball player in high school.
Yeah.
And, you know, goes on to be one of the best in the world. You know, I was sick last week, and I hate to say it, but I watched all 13 episodes of House of Cards, which I actually really enjoyed. But, you know, maybe that actually makes politics in Washington look even better than it is, because that was so bad, you know.
Well, it's what's hard about it is, as business leaders, you know, we've got a lot going on. And I had a conversation this morning before I was privileged to talk to you, where I've got questions as a business leader. And I have to kind of get that out of my head so that I can go in and be amazing at what people want me to be amazing at. And it's all of us. It's me, it's you, it's the people we talk to, people we bump into that never take the time to share what's going on. They're going through that. That can help you when you're selling or when you're leading or when you're marketing, is understanding that the guy that you're marketing to might have kicked the cat on the way out the door and got coffee on his tie, and his wife's like, when are you coming home? And the same stuff that's happening to you, it's most assuredly happening to them. I spoke last year at an event, and I was talking about suicide. And I was talking about how suicide is the #2 killer of all of our kids. All students, suicide is shocking. And I support a lot of causes. I went through a suicide attempt myself when I was 26. After making a lot of money, I really wasn't sure what was going on inside my head and had a meltdown. So I care intimately about this, but I was talking about this on stage, and I looked out, and there were probably 50, 60, 70 CEOs, and I saw, you know, tears in eyes, and it was moving because these were leaders who felt this. Not necessarily suicide, but just the pain of and loneliness of having to go it alone. 2 days later, I found out that one of my very good friends, who was senior vice president of my company, very, very close friends, his oldest son took a pistol and shot himself in the heart, took his life. And it's just, I thought, you know, we're talking about it, we're advocating help, and yet in spite of those things, it's just all around us, you know, people in pain. I think this is the crux of business, is not so much the gimmickiness of, you know, find the pain, push the pain, all that gimmickiness we read, but it's just that why and edgy, that humanness of understanding that we're all a couple seconds away from unimaginable torture and pain. Whether it's a tsunami in the Far East, you know, whether it's an earthquake in California, whether it's a tornado in the middle of the country, whether it's just stopping one night to go get a cup of milk at 2 a.m. in the wrong convenience store. right? We're all a couple seconds away from, a lot of grief and pain, and just not being fearful, not walking around going, wrapping ourselves in bubble wraps and nothing ever happens, but just knowing that might be the person that's a little grouchy today. That might be the person who seems a little abrasive. Maybe that's just a shield for what's really going on, which is pain that you could never imagine in your life. I think these are some core business principles that if you understand and embrace, they make you really powerful.
Yeah, I think about 2 years ago, I learned about this, and I think I used to go into every meeting I went into to try to get something as opposed to try to give something. And as soon as I turned that around and realized that my purpose in this one meeting in particular was to give something, I decided, it would be much more fun to give in every meeting. And then every meeting I go to, there's basically no downside, because I'm not really looking for anything. I'm just looking to give something. Yeah. And it ties into something that I also read. I felt like in a lot of your writing, there's kind of a balanced message of love and, hey, fight like mad for what you want, in your philosophy. And I think many companies, and particularly big companies, are an absolute mess right now. Yeah. We've talked a little bit about this, but if you're specifically in sales and marketing in one of these companies, what do you do differently? How can you make a change?
I'm rolling my eyes at you because I just came away from one of these big companies last week, and it's not easy. It's not easy. This is a multi-billion-dollar company that I was working with, and the division is tens and 20s of millions, so it's a little bit smaller subset. Luckily for that group, they just hired an amazing leader who is awesome and flexible and says, let's go try new things. So, but still, there's challenges. So I think one of the things that you have to get really good at is understanding your own strengths and weaknesses. So I always think there's 4 real areas that you can really focus in on. One are strategies. Like, what's your strategy? These aren't tactics. What's your strategy? Is it to be the guy who does one deal a year that's worth $5 billion? Is it to be the guy who gets the medium range deals and gets 10 of them? Or is it the guy who does 200 deals but they're all small? So what's your strategy? What's your strategy dealing internally with people? So just know that. Sometimes it helps just to sit down and write that down on a piece of paper. Processes. A lot of things go wrong because there's no process. And I know you write about this. Today at 8:47 I do this. Wednesday I do this. It's a set process where action is defined on specific days. It's definable. Third, tools. There's a lot of tools out there that these you can use to make your job easier. If you're using Salesforce, there's other tools that you can use alongside Salesforce. I find this is one of the biggest areas that salespeople can improve on is they just don't have the right tools. So, for instance, they're well-meaning people, but they don't follow up and follow through because they don't have something reminding them. So using tools like Boomerang, where if you send an email and someone hasn't replied to it, it automatically puts that email back in your inbox and says, hey, send another email to Dan because he hasn't gotten back to you. So how many emails you send off, I need to follow up with you, only for you not to follow up with me, and it was a wasted effort for all of us. So tools like Boomerang, tools like do.com that say, hey, you need to do this. I have a task on my list that says send one handwritten note each day. And it's just a reminder every day at like 2 p.m. Boom, do this, do this. This is not my calendar. This is my project management task stuff. I use do.com for all that. And it just reminds me. Now, sometimes I check the box and I don't do it because maybe I'm on the road, don't have my stationery or something like that. But it reminds me. I have another appointment, another task that says make 3 random phone calls a day. These aren't really random. These are phone calls to people that I haven't spoken with in a long time. I have 38,000 people in my Rolodex of people that I've either known or done business with or talked with or met on some level. And, these are people I just try to follow up with. We're all well-meaning people. But like we talked about earlier, we're human. And so part of this frailty is understanding the limits of what we can remember. Our prefrontal cortex, right here on our forehead, only remembers 10 seconds at most. Further a little back, you might remember 30 seconds. And then everything else is in the back of your memory, and you pull it up every time you need to remember it. This is why we like Sudoku. Why does it help aging adults? Because it takes what's in the back of your head and brings it forward, and back and forward, and back and forward. And like any exercise, the more you exercise, whether it's crunches, sit-ups, or Sudoku, it actually strengthens those muscles. Your brain's a muscle. So these are things where these tools make us smarter people. They allow us to do things using tools like Inside View for sales intelligence, where that we know what's going on. And so I can focus on being right here with you. I don't need to focus on what am I forgetting. Every time I have something to remember, I drop it in a tool. I might use something like Evernote. But things that are on my mind that I think, even nerdy things like, hey, check out the new Maserati Quattraport, which just came out a month ago. You're not going to buy one, Dan, but go look at it, right? So I might just go put that in my list and then assign it to myself on Saturday morning. Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Go take a look at it and see, go dream big dreams. So, but these are ways where we can do our jobs better. There's a lot of pressures on us, and so this is one way to do it. Now, the fourth thing is connections. Like a lot of human capital, relationships are hard. They're hard work, and they have to be maintained. Think of them as like family pets. You can't just feed the dog once a year and go, hey, I'm glad you got my Christmas card dinner, right? That doesn't, whoa, sorry, dropped that. Got excited there, and we went crazy. You can't just do that. You can't send one message once a year and expect people to enjoy doing business with you. That's just not how it works. So we have to do a better job of maintaining our relationships, meaningful ways. So strategies, processes, tools, and connections. The third one with tools, I think, this is an easy one. All of us are carrying computers in our pockets. Smartphones, Apple, Android, even the new BlackBerry, the Z10 that I see coming out. These are amazing devices that can do our work for us. Google Now tells me, when I'm, how many minutes away I am from my next appointment and how long it's going to take me to drive there. We have to start embracing these tools to help us do our job better, and not just relying on enterprise tools like Salesforce. Because Salesforce is going to help you report what you're doing to your boss. But it's unrealistic to expect that that's going to help you do your job better. Most of the time, it's not wired up right to help you do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. What have we missed, Dan? What else has been on your mind that we haven't talked about today?
Well, that's a huge go deep. That's a huge go deep question. But I think one of the things what I noticed is that I still see it, that I think if we're going to look back over these last 5, 6, 7 years, we're going to see a little bit how foolish we've been. We're busy chasing tactics instead of looking at fundamental ways to make business better for us. And that troubles me on one hand. It also inspires me to go and help make a difference with us. But we can't just say, hey, the ponies aren't moving faster, and we want the Pony Express to move faster, so let's get 2 horses, or let's make more watering stops. Looking back on that strategy, we would think that's silly. We would just say, you know what, let's put up poles and send messages over a telegram, because we can tack, Morse code, and we can have a message, and it's really awesome. And then, no one said, let's make a faster telegram. We said, let's pick up the telephone. So there's going to be tools that we have along the way, tools that morph from telephones into direct mail, that morph into, phone calling at all hours of the day or night, which morph into social media. And there's something else that's next, that's going to be next. And so what I caution is, instead of chasing after these tactical things, all good things, usually, think about how can you change the conversation in your business. Fundamentally, for once and for all, what's the way you change the conversation so that forever and always you own your industry? If you can do that, then no more are you playing around with, I have more likes than you on Facebook. I've got more LinkedIn friends than you, right? A lot of this craziness. it's really a distraction from the core goal, which is how do we change the world? And that's what each of us inherently are trying to do. We want to feel like what we do matters. We just got to go about it a little better.
Dan, this has been enjoyable. How do folks get in touch with you if they either want to follow you or even just get in touch with you directly?
So there's two ways. One is danwaldschmidt.com. And you can just Google Dan Waldschmidt, and I'm sure, Dan, when this comes out, there'll be a link or something there that you can go to. As well, you just Google something close to Dan Waldschmidt, and it'll come up. Luckily, there's no one who's too serial killer named Daniel Waldschmidt yet, so Dan Waldschmidt. And the second thing is Waldschmidt Partners. So if you're looking for Dan Waldschmidt, we won't sell you a thing on danwaldschmidt.com. There's nothing you can buy. It's all free, and it's just us having conversations. Some of those you may agree with, some of them you may not. And then Waldschmidt Partners is our business site where we help companies change conversations. Once again, our mission is to help people, but sometimes we have to charge money for that. So.
Well, I visited the danwaldschmidt.com and I saw a video or two, and I noticed that the data was free. So I want to reinforce to the audience that they should go and visit you. And I want to thank you again for spending time with me today. I really did enjoy the conversation, and I hope to look you up in Greenville next time I get up that way. But for now, this is Dan McDade signing off on another edition of PowerViews. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.